America's Hearthstone Championship. Game one's about to begin between Deerjason and DTwo. Only one person can advance. Who will it be? Let's find out starting now.
Here we go, guys. I am so happy to see Warrior once again, and it is Control Warrior. Okay, well, there's a question answered right off the top. He is running 2 unstable ghouls, which is, it's more common than running only 1 or running 0, but you do see a little bit of variation in the hyper-modern Control Warriors right now.
I wonder if this Warrior was anticipating a Hunter leadoff, because I know you don't want to play Warrior into Druid, and your best response by a fat margin is a Warrior against the Hunter deck.
That's
a
true.
Good point. Yeah,
absolutely right. And Hunter has what looks like probably on paper a pretty good matchup against most of his decks,
like Shaman and Paladin.
Exactly. So being in this position here, having this matchup where you're playing Warrior against Druid is maybe not what he was looking for, maybe not what he was trying to get.
Yep, and he does throw one of those unstable ghouls back. Not too shocking there. All right, not a terrible draw. Execute a really useful card against the bigger minions that Druid throws out. And you notice he kept the Black Knight. Now he's got coin, of course, so he can get that out on turn 5 if he needs to. But an expensive card to keep. But again, against Druid, I think not a bad choice to hold on to that.
Yeah, a lot of the things that Druid have can be taunt creatures. Some of them play Sludge Belcher, some of them don't. We've seen more Spectral Knights for Druids today than we have
Druids do have a lot less taunts than they have before. That is
something we've mostly noticed. Yeah, that's true. No Innervate, no Wild Growth for the Druid player. So at this point, he does just have to wrath this unstable ghoul, and he's willing to do it because he knows something like an Acolyte of Pain can come down behind it.
Right, but then wouldn't you wrath the Acolyte?
Yeah, you know,
instead?
actually, I agree. You know, I think actually Deerjason's pretty happy to see that because if he's got Armor Smith and Acolyte in his hand.
He is happy to see it, and yes, you would rather wrath the Acolyte of Pain, but the Druid player knows he wants to play a Yeti the subsequent turn.
Mana curve.
And that also kills it in one shot.
That's true.
So he's making sure he stays on curve while not giving multiple cards to the Acolyte.
Well, we'll see what the choice is here. I mean, obviously now Armor Smith not as appealing. It would die immediately to the Yeti, as would the Acolyte of Pain. And he doesn't really have a clean way to kill it either. I mean, this isn't a type of situation that you'd want to use Execute on, but that's really his only option if he's going to kill it, you know?
That's true. I wouldn't be surprised if he had done something like coining out the Sludge Belcher in that case. He has one more turn to play it where it's not going to get Black Knighted, but his opponent does have Black Knight in hand, as does he. So Sludge Belcher will be at risk of getting Black Knighted on any turn after this.
It's a pretty nice card to have, honestly. Azure Drake is really strong just because it keeps the gas up. It's just a mini Ancient of Lore, and that's also a really powerful card.
I do kind of like Lothep here, too. Control Warrior, you know, lives and dies by its spells so often in the early game like this, and so denying the Execute and whatever else is drawn, which is nothing this particular time, is usually a pretty good play. Doesn't really hurt Deerjason that much this time around, I'd say, though.
This might tempt him
really
to play a Sludge Belcher, and if he does, it will get Black Knighted, and that will be a big swing for the Druid. He'll get to have a solid board, and we don't see anything like a Brawl ready to go for the Warrior, so that could be a lot of trouble.
Yeah, looking at his hand, looking at it from...
it will be Sludge Belcher, though. The alternatives are pretty weak.
I mean, if you look at it from Deerjason's perspective, Lothep just comes down. It's going to be, you know, if you play the Sludge Belcher, it's going to be traded for anyway. You know, maybe you actually want to go for the Unstable Ghoul here just because you could gain a little bit more armor conceivably with that being hit first.
And it looks like that's what he's going to do. He's going to play an Unstable Ghoul to threaten to kill both of these minions. I really like this a lot. Even if he were to Black Knight the Unstable Ghoul now, it wouldn't do what he wants it to do. Both of those minions would still end up dying.
Pretty clever.
Yeah,
it is very clever. And the Druid player still has a lot of gas in the tank. Even just playing the Azure Drake this turn is going to be okay, but he did stave off the early minions.
Yeah, and Black Knight, suddenly not a good choice at all. He might as well run this into it. Wow. Deerjason turned that situation around really, really well. There's the Azure Drake. What does he draw? A Savage Roar. Okay.
Number 2 even.
Yeah, not bad to have in there. Able to innervate out that Shade of Naxxramas, too.
I mean, with Shade of Naxxramas, the double Savage Roar becomes an impending threat to end the game every single turn from this point on.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, Alex Strasser, a card that every Warrior is going to run, really.
I like how the interaction, though, because a lot of times you have cards like Sylvanas, and then you can take their Shade of Naxxramas if things get completely crazy, and then you just have to cross your fingers they don't have Keeper of the Grove.
Yeah, well, that's always the threat, right? But it's only 2 cards in their deck, so you kind of it's hard to play around it too much. It's easy to get caught in that trap of playing too much around cards that they might have, you know.
By the way, is that 19 damage with double Savage Roar? He was just a couple points off from killing his
7
opponent.
plus 12, 19.
I think so.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think you're right.
Oh man.
Wow.
That's a lot of damage.
So this turn, what do you think? Chill Indiani or Spectral Knight? I would lean towards Spectral Knight personally with the hero power. What do you think, Reels?
Well, I think Spectral Knight probably is a little bit better here. It also plays on curve a little bit better.
Yeah.
But the real question is whether or not you suicide both minions into Sylvanas. There's a lot of risk in leaving it alive, but you also are holding double Savage Roar, and as far as you know, that's going to be your best way to end the game. If you let both of these minions die, then it might actually give your opponent a chance to kind of catch up on board.
Right.
Unfortunately, the Warrior's best way to catch up looks like it'll probably be the Sludge Belcher, and that can get Black Knighted.
Man.
So
If a Brawl gets drawn here, we could see a
Brawl
big
could
play.
be huge.
Yeah. That's what you're always hoping for against Druid. Brawl's one of definitely the bigger spells. There's the Armor Smith.
just
That's
an Armor
one
Smith.
half of the Brawl combo.
That's, I suppose. That's true. The Armor Smith always survives. We've learned that one. Yep, learned that lesson.
Shout out to Kit Kats.
Yeah. He'd know.
Speaking of shoutouts, he could, you know, attack with Sylvanas into the Drake and coin exit. No, you can't do that.
No, it's okay.
Oh, still too soon. 1 year later, still too soon.
Well, he's
Whoa.
counting up the damage now, and I don't think he's going to be able to go for it yet.
Well,
It does
Black
mean
Knight has some good value here.
it does, but if he can't push through and get a ton of damage in this turn, that Sylvanas is actually going to be a huge problem.
Yeah, that's right. She'll pop and then steal either one of these big creatures that you don't want to give away.
Well, hopefully, really the spider. You could you could play out the spider, and then hopefully it's taking a spider. So that probably will be what he's going for.
And so that means, I suppose, you'd probably want to either run into that Armor Smith with your Shade of Naxxramas or just do a little bit of damage to face and then set up for the double Savage Roar.
Right.
Either one, I think, is fine, but you want to get as much out of these minions because one of them is going to be going over to the enemy next turn.
Oh, Death's Bite.
Yeah, if he had that a turn or two earlier, would have been nice.
So an interesting thought is, do you attack the 4/3 Shade with your weapon? You can also execute it, but maybe you do need to kill the minion that you know you can kill and you don't want to steal it. And you just hope that you don't steal the spider. Could be
Yeah.
another 50-50 Sylvanas situation on our hands.
Man, it's really rough because yeah, it's so rough because even though you know you're going to be able to kill something and steal something with Sylvanas, you're still really in danger of being comboed here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The spider's going to live almost no matter what, and your opponent's on 8 mana. You know he's going into 9. You could be really
true.
worried about the combo, and whether you're worried about it or not, even if he decides not to play around it,
boy.
it could get drawn.
Wow, and he gives himself another 4 damage to the face.
Yep,
This is
we're
looking
about to find out.
very scary. What's it going to be? It's a 50-50. Once again, the Sylvanas 50-50.
What are you going to do, Sylvanas? How friendly are you?
Oh,
takes the
spider! That is not what Deerjason wanted at all.
Well, he's not dead yet. He does get to kill something with the execute after the spider attacks, but he's going to
Yep.
be taking damage before that.
Well,
He may have to play his own Black Knight just to have a minion in play.
wouldn't be bad.
Yikes. Well,
This
you
is
know, at
turn
least
9.
he took some of the stickiness off the board. It's just a 4/5 mana creature.
All
Or
right.
4/5 creature, excuse me.
Keeper of the Grove. And yeah, he doesn't have enough mana to kill him, or enough damage rather on the board to kill him with double Savage Roar, I suppose.
Yeah, and at this point, basically Deerjason can't play around the combo, and he has to hope that D2 doesn't draw it, and D2 just really wants to draw it.
Yeah.
So Force of Nature is the card of the day for D2.
He can, if he can clear, and then use Alex Strauss to put himself at 15. And then put himself at habitually that range where his opponent can't put him down if he controls the state of the board.
Right.
Because he will have available to the coin next turn with Execute.
Okay, so if there are only 2 minions in play, you're saying he could kill them and play
Heal
Alex
himself
Strauss.
back on
Okay,
himself.
that's true. That does look like that's something that he could do. If the
'Cause-
Keeper of the Grove gets played, that play will be removed. That will no longer be possible.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was going to do this too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now he has to live for a turn without his opponent drawing the combo, and he needs to kill enough minions that just the Savage Roars don't kill him either.
All right.
Each Savage Roar is 2 damage plus 2 more for each minion you have in play. So right now, with all the minions he has in play, each Savage Roar is 8 damage. Of course, some of the minions are going to die.
Yep.
Looks like he's going to Looks like he is going to do it. So he's going to Alexstrasza himself back up. He's going to execute and kill the other 4/5. Maybe just the 2/4.
I think that's a great play too, because like we said, that's a way where he can give himself the best chance of surviving the combo, you know, and even kills the Chillwind Yeti.
Well, he does die to the combo. If Force of Nature is drawn, the game is over.
That is true.
It is just a wild growth. It'll be such a tease if this is
Force of Nature.
Force of Nature.
Well, we'll see. Excess mana. What does he get? And Keeper the Grove.
Okay. So Keeper's not too bad. It probably does enough damage that he can still draw the other piece of the combo next turn and have it still be lethal, even with his opponent armoring up. Something like a shield block would put it out of range. A Sludge Belcher would stop it. But those are the cards that Deerjason will be looking for, and D2 still just wants Force of Nature.
Yeah. Kind of a crazy hand, though, right now. Huh. Also notice we're playing on the next game board this time. That just entered rotation. Very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty awesome.
I like
it a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was going to be one that was out there almost right away, but it was it was for the adventure, but
it was out there soon.
Yeah. Yep. But it's really cool. I like that it's in rotation now.
Well, a little bit more damage onto Deerjason. Karen Bloodhoof. Ooh, that's. I mean, he can clear. Well, he can't act. Yeah.
He can clear the board.
He can clear the board. He'd have to use a weapon. He'd have to take a little bit of damage doing it, but armor up.
At this point, you very clearly see that your opponent doesn't have strong answers or initiative on the board, so do what you can.
Yep, and now there's one turn here, a one-turn window where if he draws Force of Nature, it just ends. If he draws something else, the game might continue on. It really depends what it is. If it's something innocuous, then he could get out of combo range even next turn.
Ooh, Shade of Naxxramas. Yeah, that's a bit of a dead draw for D2.
It's sticky, though.
Well, it is something that almost certainly will stay in play, though.
And I don't think he's going to die next turn.
No, shouldn't. He's still at 30 health, 31 in fact right now.
So 2 draws. The Warrior gets 2 draws to help find something like a shield block or another Sludge Belcher here. That's a brawl. That's not what he's going to want, of course.
No.
So he's probably just going to attack in with his weapon and see what he gets off of the Acolyte. He might attack with a 1/1 first.
14 cards. I count 3 cards that'd be super helpful to keep him alive. Well, of course, 2 of them, or 1 of them is Sludge Belcher.
At least 3. We don't know. We haven't seen his whole deck yet, so we don't know if he's playing any other really big defensive cards.
He's been holding 2 cards for a while, by the way, so you can suspect he has one piece of the combo.
I would be very tempted to Shield Slam my own Acolyte at this point, because you really need to draw into like a shield block or, like you said, a Sludge Belcher or something.
That's actually a really good point.
It would be an interesting thing to do, and I actually like that play. Yeah. It's not something I had thought of immediately, and I'm sure Deerjason sees it, and he's probably considering the same thing right now.
It's not something anyone would want to do, but in this case, desperate times.
It's a Kel'Thuzad. So
wow, he's got KT in this Warrior deck. That's interesting.
Kel'Thuzad is pretty cool, but it's not doing a lot right now because it's not really a resource war. It's a top deck / race.
Well, KT is good in very specific places, and I'm surprised to see him in Warrior. I actually, because you don't. Oh, that's it.
Force of Nature.
Oh, that's the end of the game right there. Yep, Force of Nature, Savage Roar, the good old combo. He's even got the Shade of Naxxramas on top of it. And game 1 going to D2.
Oh, look at that careful roundabout victory lap style.
Yeah, that's true. D2 with the fist bump. He is pretty happy about that one. And that ended up being a little bit closer of a game than we thought it was going to be initially, but the combo comes through.
That was so close. Both of them were waiting for just a couple of different cards that they knew would help close out the game for them. D2 waiting for a long time to get it, and he got there first.
You know, I got to go back real quick, and I mean, I know the Warrior deck for Deerjason is gone, but I'm got to say I'm a little bit surprised to see the KT in there. I mean, KT is a minion that deals better with something like a Paladin or Shaman, where you usually end up with a few mid-range minions on the board, and you can then trade those and then bring them back, whereas Control Warrior, you have a lot of big legendaries, but you usually only have like 1 out at a time. So that's an interesting add to that deck. I wish I want to see that deck list later, because I'm curious to see if there's anything else in there to kind of support it.
Kel'Thuzad was a card that was experimented in the West a lot right after he came out, and especially in Warrior. Paladin was also tested. Paladin actually made a bit of a comeback with KT, but
I like it most in Paladin and Shaman, I think.
Right, but in the Warrior deck specifically, as we look at the screen and see Paladin's next choice, it just felt like it just wasn't exactly in the game plan line. I
agree.
It felt like, as a Warrior player, you don't really add to your win condition too much with Kel'Thuzad. It does help you fight for the board, but there wasn't a lot of practical application.
I find it very unlikely that you get a lot of good turns with that one.
Yeah.
But moving on, Paladin coming in to try to take down this Druid deck. And this is cool. We haven't seen a lot of Paladin yet. And I would imagine it's probably going to be control. You know, I doubt it's super aggro Paladin. I feel like I would have heard of that from the other players by now. But what do you think? Control Paladin going up against this Druid deck. Reels, give me your odds.
Paladin does do really well against almost any of the other slower decks. Druid can feel that way sometimes. It does, however, have that big combo finish that we just saw with Force of Nature, Savage Roar, and a lot of burst damage that it has access to. That's really punishing if you ever leave too many minions out in play. And sometimes with Paladin, you have to leave minions out in play until you can deal with them more efficiently. So for Paladin, the name of the game will be trying to just not get overwhelmed early. And if you can do that, a lot of the time you just have better tools to deal with the mid through late game, as long as you're not too low on health before it gets there.
Yeah, combinations of like Equality and Consecrate or Pyromancer Equality are one of the few ways out there to effectively deal with Shade of Naxxramas too. So it's got some nice tools to deal with some of the strength from Druid, but it sounds like it's time to move into the game and see if Deerjason can tie things up.
All right, can his Paladin stave off this aggressive Druid deck? Again, a very curious veto from D2 to take out the Druid deck, but he also that it was a ramp Druid. In fact, I heard that Deerjason's Druid deck was the greediest one in this tournament.
Oh, really?
So he says, you know what, I don't want to have my Druid run something like very slow, taunt Druid, and be disadvantaged from there. And all of a sudden, now Deerjason has to face off against his Druid deck without having to be able to rely on that advantage.
You know, it kind of seems like in this meta, people are pretty confident against Paladin going into this tournament. So Druid is one of those decks, again, like we've seen all weekend long, that can just take games, that doesn't really have a lot of bad matchups. So given the kind of interesting deck choices from Deerjason, Druid seems like a fairly, natural ban. But we'll see. It looks like everything being thrown back for D2, though.
It does seem like Deerjason is very much a control player. The rest of his picks, Control Warrior, apparently this very ramp Druid. These are all cards that, are very, oh wow, a coin, Wild Growth into Shade, that's going to be a pretty big deal.
That is so good, man. And I mean, you're going to need those Paladin tools, like I mentioned earlier, to kill those stealth minions. So Deerjason sees this, and he's going to see the Shade of Naxxramas next turn too, but he may not be terribly worried. There's one part of it right there. Consecrate, certainly good to see.
Well, he may even be tempted to pull the trigger on it, even just to kill the second Shade.
Oh, really?
I don't know if he'll go that deep, but when you see two Shades, even killing one might be good enough. So, and he even has a second Consecrate, so if he goes Consecrate and the other Shade stays stealth, he can actually kill the other one as well.
Yeah, and generally Consecrate is going to be the card you're going to be using for that too. I mean, you don't need them as much on the other minions Druid is going to be throwing at you because they've got so much health anyway. So yeah, you might be right there.
It is really powerful though, used in concert. Oh, he doesn't decide to play the Shade, interesting. It is really powerful used
nice
in concert, of course, with, that is a great draw. With your equalities, of course, you'd much rather equality Consecrate later on in the game and keep your own board than you would want to use something like Wild Pyromancer. So
yeah, generally.
So the way Paladin stabilizes the early game often is getting cards like True Silver and stabilizing, and if things get too hairy, of course you use things like Elder Peacekeeper earlier on. But as the game develops, you have such great spot removal because you have the ability to Humility and then combine it with Kodo. And then just remove any creature that comes on the board. And then Paladin, as the game develops, Druid's going to try to set up these big fat creatures and then just Equality to push everything away.
Yeah,
very difficult if D2 gets a slow start here.
I gotta say, this Control Paladin sort of archetype that's been floating around for a while is really one of the most fun decks, I think, to play in Hearthstone, because when you play it, it takes, a little bit of practice to get the hang of it if you're a newer player who's going to try it out. But once you do, you really feel like you have an answer for almost everything in every matchup. It's a lot of fun.
Well, this could work out really well for Deerjason, and he's making a bit of a greedy play.
I think he's telegraphing pretty hard with this one, too.
Right, but it might send signals that, okay, Consecrate number 2 might be coming. And so this will trigger the play of the Azure Drake instead of the Shade. And not having the True Silver in play is going to end up being a pretty big negative here. So the True Silver may have been better off with that, but now he basically has to use the second Consecrate. He doesn't really have a choice because otherwise the Shade is going to grow out of range of it. And now there's just going to be a 4-2 Azure Drake sitting there. So a bit of an unfortunate sequence.
Yeah. Had to go through with it, like you said, but it doesn't leave him in the best spot ever. Now Shade of Naxxramas feels pretty safe. Both Consecrates used, and yep, why not? A little bit of hero power, a little bit more damage to the face. And we do see KT was drawn last turn for Deerjason as well. And, you know, again, we talked about that's a little bit more normal. KT and Shaman and KT and Paladin are what we've seen a lot of lately. A lot of lately? All right, yeah, whatever.
Well,
yeah, we understand what
sure.
you said.
Why not?
It's really too bad you can't run
so
3
hard on
Consecrates. I'm sure he would he would trade just any card in his hand for Consecrate number 3, but
just reach over to Arena, just back out a friendly challenge.
Yep. So he hero powered right away, but would that have been an okay turn for Holy Light?
So at this point, maybe he's feeling like he doesn't need to play the Holy Light. He is fighting really hard for board control constantly, and as it looks right now, unless something like an Innervate is drawn, he would have to use the Shade to attack into the 1/1, otherwise he could kill the 5/5. So it's actually going to work out having the 1/1 in play.
Yes, and he's got plenty of taunts and heals to back it up, so still not a priority, but
such as that.
Yeah, you are correct that if there was an innervated combo, he would have died previous turn. But how many times can you play around that on turn 7?
Well, he is getting into a life total though, where the combo is starting to look pretty scary, and it is ready to go in hand. So
I think Lotheb's an important draw, by the way, to set up something like that in the future.
Lotheb could be a great draw right here. It does just die to the Guardian, so it doesn't really advance your board state too well. Oh, he's just going to double Wrath. Very interesting. And he has a Yeti to play as well. So this does knock him down on cards quite a bit. He's not getting insane value out of the Wraths. It does just 2 for 1 him. But he gets to attack in for 4 right now with the Shade. And this still does set up very well for the combo if there's nothing really powerful coming out from the Paladin.
Well, looks like Sludge Belcher may slow that down a little bit. He's also got Sunwalker as well, too. So well, also Sen'jin Shieldmaster, so he's got ways to kind of slow this down. But
he reached for the True Silver, and if he goes True Silver Aldor Peacekeeper, which is something you would think that he might do, he will actually can end up dead.
I think you're right. He needs this taunt right now, or he is in big, big trouble.
He has to play the Sen'jin, otherwise he just dies, and I think he's realizing that now. He's figuring out just maybe how worried is he about the combo.
Right.
And this is the dangerous part of playing Paladin against Druid is sometimes you just have to take a little bit too much damage early in the game, and they just close you out with just really powerful burst.
Yep, took some time to think about it. And so now the Druid not quite able to end it this time around because, you know, he can silence the taunt, but he won't have enough for the combo after that.
Sure,
Right.
but this is where I feel like cards like Lotheb is really powerful because you just want to protect this board as much as you can because you do have the combo, and you set up a minion that can challenge the Sen'jin Shieldmaster.
Yeah,
it's assuming you don't want to silence and push through it.
Well, I mean, you've got 9 mana, so you can silence and you can play Lotheb as well, and then have a lot of minions on the board and a really good chance to have stuff to build that combo off of next turn.
Yep, that actually could be a really punishing play. As far as he knows, even if his opponent plays something like Tyrion, maybe he'd be okay with that.
Sure.
He might even have enough damage to push through with a combo, even with Tyrion, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's what you got to calculate on this turn.
That is probably what he's thinking about. I haven't counted it all out yet, so that would be a big deal. He's just going to do the efficient thing, and he does get to charge in for even more damage, though. So,
yeah, just making it even easier, kind of saying, all right, well, now I'm going to put myself in a situation where even if you remove my minions, I can still kill you with the combo.
Yep.
All right, Sunwalker, kind of an annoyance. He's running 2 of them in his deck.
Yeah, he's playing very taunt heavy. He can still play very defensive, Sunwalker heal up, or Sunwalker and Aldor Peacekeeper, but he does have the sense he's getting low.
I kind of like the Sunwalker heal up this turn. I think if you're going to wait any longer to cast this Holy Life, you might not get a chance to do it.
I think he's going to count it up, and if he thinks he's not dead to the combo, he will do whatever the most powerful play is. I would have to imagine that's something like Sunwalker Peacekeeper.
Yeah.
If he makes a play other than that, I think he's playing really scared, and so he is going to Holy Light this turn, but this is a much weaker board, so now whatever his opponent plays, he'll be less ready to fight against. If he had the Peacekeeper in play, he'd have a lot more power in play ready to attack.
We'll see how it all works out, and now again, you know, having that silence from the Keeper of the Grove is pretty nice.
It certainly is, and it is something that he can do. He can play the Lotheb and the silence this turn, and that will leave almost certainly a board that is too big to deal with. If it had been a Sunwalker instead, it could have ended much more poorly for him. Oh, but there's a Tyrion.
Ooh, that is a big draw. And he has got 3 taunts with Divine Shield in his hand right now.
Is Tyrion so much better than Sunwalker Peacekeeper, though?
That's the thing, is I might still be tempted to
You might still want a Sunwalker Peacekeeper, yeah.
Oh, yeah, an Aldor Peacekeeper on Loatheb, yeah.
But Sunwalker Peacekeeper, I think you're dead this time because he has 2 minions in play left instead of 1. If you had done it the other way last turn, you would
have
have
the 3/3 challenging.
Yeah, quite possible.
Yeah, well, we have the luxury of perfect information.
We do.
So.
That is true. It's a lot
Well,
easier for
So
us.
Reels, my time machine is actually in my trunk. So if you want to go and
we have the luxury of perfect information, but the only reason you would wholly light is maybe if you think you're going to die, that means that you're going to die to the combo, but he could have still played around the combo. So he makes the play this turn. It's the same play he could have made last turn. At this point, there's 2 minions in play, so I'm actually not sure if he's outright dead or not, but it looks like there's a pretty good chance.
It should be able to make exactly his bullets count once more.
6.
All he needs is his 3 treants to burst through, right?
Yes, and he
should be able to do that.
Yeah, I think so.
So as long as D2 counts, which of course he's motioning with his hand, he's going to jump out to a 2-0 lead.
Math is hard, and I'm not saying that like ironically. I mean it. For me,
I believe you.
it's true.
Not for this guy, though.
Nope.
He's got it down. Deerjason, of course, he knows what this means when he sees Force of Nature Savage roar.
Yep, means the end of the game. Let's see. Well, okay.
Okay. Whoa.
And
what? What?
Oh, no!
Oh,
D2
no.
has gotten 1 short of lethal because he overkilled by 1.
And now,
does this make the difference? Wait,
it might.
the Zod?
I think it might. Yeah, KT is coming down, and that means the Sludge Belcher would come back with taunt, right? Because
Yes,
he comes
it
back,
would.
yeah, as if he was a brand new minion.
Well,
so
if just a Sludge Belcher can keep him alive, I mean, at this point, D2 needs to find direct damage. He's almost certainly not going to find enough damage to punch through unless he gets something like another Savage Roar, which he does have in his deck.
Or Swipe, or Keeper of the Groove. Those are the only ways you can get through.
So,
and I, excuse me, I do think that Sludge Belcher would keep him alive. I think that would actually do it.
maybe even second Force of Nature could break through as well.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be able to at 1 life.
Swipe
Yes.
wouldn't be the greatest for the Paladin to have drawn by the Druid too, I guess.
So do you believe in the Sludge Belcher, or do you believe in the light?
Well, I think Tyrion. I think I would play Tyrion here.
I believe in the Sludge Belcher. KT is the way.
It is an excellent card, but I like Tyrion's chances because he is the strongest play.
Oh man, all right, there it is.
Because now you can have an opportunity next turn to get double taunts if this goes the opposite way, but there's 2 draws from D2 to hopefully recover some face here.
Innervate is not one of those. Well, he can. Yeah, he still has a chance. Still has a chance.
He's looking for Swipe, he's looking for Keeper, he's looking for Force of Nature, he's looking for Savage Roar. No, that's not going to do it.
No.
It's close because he does have the Druid of the Claw. So, actually, no, he wins.
Oh, you're right. Druid of the Claw with charge gives him the 6 dim.
Yep, he should be able to break through with Tyrion.
He can break the shield.
Yes, he has it. Now
with
he just has to count.
And all he needs to do is, 2 with his own hero
he
to
knows
the face.
this time. He knows this time. D2's got it.
Well, he knew it last time, too. He just sequenced it wrong.
Oh, boy.
All right, second time's the charm,
If he accidentally attacks Druid of the Claw straight into the Divine Shield, this could be bad. But I think he's got it this time.
Let's hope so. Okay. Can you do that?
All right.
Yeah, it's okay.
Here we go. D2 will take game number 2.
Yep. Okay, there it is. Wow, and D2 up 2-0 over Deerjason.
Yeah, Deerjason, I've enjoyed his play playing these control decks so far, but that Druid deck just had so much punishing burst. We've seen it a lot of times this tournament already, and 2 more games up, 2-0 with Druid. That is a tall hill to climb.
You can see D2 just shaking his head there and kind of laughing because that's the thing. You don't often get a second chance like that in games at this level and situations like that, but he barely had enough with that draw.
Well, it could have been lights out because if his opponent, if he never drew direct damage, and then his opponent just got double taunts with a Sludge Belcher and a Tyrion that you can never push through in 1 turn because you need kill Zod.
Yeah.
That's actually the game there. So there's 2 turns away. Not to mention Drew was on like teens of health. That was 2 turns away from completely being
He needed to draw something like that turn to be able to take it because otherwise, you're right, KT would have come in and then that was that.
He maybe would have had 1 more turn to find something very direct damage, but it was that turn or the next, and after that it was lights out. That was really a scary moment.
Oh, man. Well, a moment that will live in infamy, surely, for D2. But at the same time, he shook it off, and he's 2 for 2 with missed lethals, but he's 2-0, which is the ultimate score you got to keep counting.
Right. It's kind of a Bob Ross moment. It gets to be a happy little accident.
Yeah, sure.
So.
It's ultimate BM, so to speak.
Well, you know, after that really long series between Strife Crow and Stunner, we may actually be in for our shortest series of these final 4 matches here, as D2 has a chance to 3-0 his final match on his way to BlizzCon. Looks like it's Shaman, the pick for Deerjason, to try to make the comeback.
That's right. And as much as D2 has faltered a little bit towards the end of games, his overall big picture, his macro play has been pretty spot on. Like, he's made the right decisions overall in terms of his goals and playing to his win conditions and his draws. So overall, I mean, he gets himself in a position where he has a large enough lead where he can make a mistake if he wanted to make it interesting for the fans.
It's certainly not by design, but
well, everybody mistakes.
Not by intention, I suppose.
Like, you never see someone play a tournament perfectly, and you hope that the little mistakes you make aren't like that, where you like miss lethal, but it will happen to everyone. Luckily, though, for D2, he was able to get the 2-0, and it looks like it's time to get into what could be the final game of this match.
That's right. Deerjason is down 0-2, has to rely on the Shaman deck, which can do well against what Druid deck has to offer, except speaking of offerings and sacrifice and RNG, there is Ragnaros in this deck.
Druid Ragnaros.
I know. Wow. Yeah. All right. All sorts of interesting stuff from these guys in these decks. Ragnaros and Druid. Yeah, I mean, it's something every once in a great while you'll see in like a pretty extreme ramp, but that is extreme ramp, man. That Druid deck is just like skateboarding and drinking Surge all the time.
But it's not it's not like a true ramp deck in the sense where you're always ramping to play very big creatures. He's got so many small ones too. I mean, what was interesting is I talked to Chalky, and Chalky said he thinks D2 is one of the more predictable players. And can you predict a Ragnaros in that kind of deck?
I wouldn't have predicted that, no.
I wouldn't have guessed it, especially with double combo already in there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of potential damage, though. That's a lot of good cards.
Imagine if the previous game, that was the card he needed to recover the game, just Ragnaros to the face.
What if it had happened? Like, Ragnaros gets drawn, Ragnaros goes to the face.
Wouldn't be the first time.
That would have been awesome.
I've seen crazier Amaz wins, let me tell you.
Right,
and you've seen crazier Amaz wins.
I've seen some pretty crazy Amaz wins. Well, he did find the Wild Growth. It was a turn late, but turn 3 is still good because what he needed it to be for was for those Spectral Knights, and the first one comes down. Very, very difficult card for Shaman to deal with. Not impossible. He does have access to Fire Elemental, which is one of the better ways to help finish it off. It does mean he's going to lose his Unbound Elemental, which he doesn't want to have happen, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Well, he gets a little bit of damage done to face, and I mean, that's as much as you can expect with that card right now, and you know that Unbound Elemental is also going to get to do 2 damage to that Spectral Knight, so, you know, he's possibly got a turn 6 clear, like you mentioned with that Fire Elemental, so, you know, it's bad, but it's not as bad as it could have been. Yep, there's the trade.
Well, it does mean that this Fire Elemental is going to have to stand opposed to Spectral Knight number 2, which is also not a good thing, and that swipe is looking really scary.
Yeah.
Swipe plus hero power will clear the Fire Elemental, what's left over of the Spider, and he'll just be able to attack into the Gnome, and he'll still have the board and a 4/4 Spectral Knight.
So is it time to reevaluate then and not play Fire Elemental, perhaps set up a Lightning Storm play?
Right.
He's thinking about it.
That is the alternative. Lightning Storm is another way to get there. If he rolls 4/4, he is in great shape, but it's probably not what he wants to do, and he does know his opponent is playing Shade, and there's even one in his hand. So saving the Lightning Storm for a better situation where you can kill something that hasn't done anything yet may be even better. So it does.
Oh boy.
You know, he
walk into swipe, but
he's trying to get his opponent to trade with his Fire Elemental, and then he has a little bit of an edge because his opponent has played both Spectral Knights, and he would have only played 1 Fire Elemental, but we already know this one's not going to work out too well.
Yep, and he even doesn't have to face tank the damage. And he could make it look like he top deck the swipe. Ah, no, okay. That would
get in your head.
Yeah,
that would get in your head.
You go for the
especially up
psychological effect.
Yeah.
If you want to.
I think you take every little psychological edge you can in a game like this, man. I mean, it's a match to see who goes to BlizzCon.
Yeah, I always try to, act really excited when I had it all planned out, but I top decked the same card.
That's when Rios fidgets with the hat, and he's like, oh, yes. I also read an article where you want to play cards from the left hand though, because it rearranges cards often and it makes players lose track of what you've been keeping throughout the rest of the game. So there are pros and cons of both. Just
That's
tossing
true.
it out there.
All right, so the totem, healing totem, and yeah, just to go ahead and drop that spider down. He's saving Thalnos. He wants to use that along with some spells a little bit later, probably a lightning storm. Looking at that Spectral Knight still on the board.
And given the hand that he has, the storm is actually going to be really important this game. So
Definitely.
he really wants to get at least 2 opposing minions with a lightning storm if he can. He's hoping his opponent walks into a circumstance like that. If this comes down as a taunt, though, that could be a pretty big swing as well.
That's right. How many shamans do you see playing Black Knight? They already have so much great spot removal, and to have another card like that, it's highly unusual. It could be a big swing.
It could be a big swing, and he goes for it.
Oh, man.
And he's got the Shade, too, so now it's going to be a bit of a choice. I'm almost certain he's just going to play the Black Knight. But this would also be a pretty good circumstance to play the Lightning Storm, because he can play the Lightning Storm and a Lightning Bolt, probably kill everything, or for sure kill everything, even if he has to use the Spider.
Yeah, I think you definitely want to take that threat of the Shade of Naxxramas away at least.
Well, but you're never going to get a good use out of the Black Knight unless you take it now. So I am actually a bit surprised that he goes for the Lightning Storm. It is a really strong Lightning Storm when you're hitting 3 minions and you have spell power.
Oh, big moment, and he rolls high.
Okay, yeah.
Very nice.
So he doesn't even have to use his Spider. That would have been okay. Now he has to decide if he wants to use Lightning Bolt or Rock Biter. Both of them are okay. One makes you take damage. I would be kind of surprised if he uses the Lightning Bolt, but the reason he's considering it is because it adds a 3rd overload to his next turn, and he'll only have 5 mana.
That is true. I mean, the merits of saving that Rockbiter, though, is you have to assume that Alakir is probably in here, and that Rockbiter Alakir is so strong late game. He will go ahead and use the Rockbiter weapon now, though, it looks like. Thinking about it.
Yeah, I like what you were saying too, Rio, is that you're like planning your mana in case you draw into like Fire Elemental as well. So that way you have like things to do the next turn. It opens up possibilities. So that way you don't do it. Although I do understand the idea of keeping Ragnaros. Oh, sorry, of
keeping Ragnaros on your mind.
Of keeping 1 Lightning Bolt and 1 Rockbiter for diversity's sake.
Oh, he's just going to play it. Look at that.
Huh.
Well, if it doesn't hit the spell power guy, okay.
Okay.
If it now he can double Lightning Bolt and just play Defender of Argus, get his minions out of immediate swipe range. Pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that Ragnaros went down there. I mean, there's not a lot that you can gain from it. Looking at his other plays, you know, he's not going to have a lot of big targets for big game
He just
hunter.
decides to just hero power.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow, he's just going to let Ragnaros go. He says, roll on, Ragnaros.
Throw caution to the wind.
That is a little bit crazy. He has a really good opportunity to kill it right now, but he's not going to use it.
Well, double Lightning Bolt does represent a lot of potential damage.
Yeah, but then if his opponent has a spell power swipe.
It doesn't look like he does this time, but you're right. That's a huge threat.
Another thing that's possible here is of something like a silence from the Keeper of the Grove on the Blood Mage Thalnos, a swipe coming in on the 2/3, and a hero power taking out the 2/1.
So you're right.
That is almost a full clear. It just leaves 2 0/1 totems. And it also denies the draw and removes the spell power. So now double Lightning Bolt on Ragnaros isn't even a possibility. He doesn't even have a good answer to Ragnaros anymore.
Well, at least BGH can't get played. That's a silver lining, because they'll only be targeting Ragnaros.
Well, and it
hits
goes
the
for
face,
it, so
that's good.
It's starting to get scary.
Oh. Sorry about that, too. Wow. And Flame Tongue Totem.
One turn too late.
Flame Tongue Totem, I mean, if he rolls spell power, he only needs to use, he doesn't get it.
Yeah, he can still kill it, technically.
He can kill it, although not in a way that he really enjoys or likes.
It's pretty costly, yeah. He can do it, but it's definitely expensive this turn. He'd have to give
Every
up those
totem
totems.
except spell power.
Yep. Yeah, he had a 50-50 to get the spell power and did not get it that time.
Well, this is getting really down to the wire, and Deerjason really has his back against the wall. Ragnaros is, at this point, this looming threat, this big giant monster that he can't deal with.
And he hasn't drawn any hexes, too. That's actually one of the bigger things as well, because you would expect when you throw Ragnaros out there that it's going to get hexed, you know? And so to go a couple turns without that, D2 just happened to hit the exact right timing where the card that Deerjason needed just wasn't in his hand. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I think he should have used that opportunity we looked at earlier. He could have double lightning bolted and taken out Ragnaros, and now
hindsight is 2020. And, you know, Dan has a time machine, I hear.
Yeah.
You can hop back in, but
let's do it.
The way it sits now, he might not have a choice except to either continue to ignore it. Okay, so he's going to continue to ignore it, and he's just going to go ahead and hope that it keeps hitting innocuous totems and just smash in. And I think this is an okay play. He's using the resources that he has in a way that he can try to win the game, and killing Ragnaros would mean that anything that the Druid draws is just almost an automatic win.
Okay, well, there's Azure Drake. He's going to get another draw out of this. Still 5 mana remaining, and 2 more innervates. That does not help too much.
Yeah, this is more or less about as good as you could ask for if you're on Deerjason's side. Azure Drake you don't like to see, but it too can die to just a lightning bolt. And
that's true. In fact, if it misses, it guarantees. He needs to hit this Flame Tongue Totem, by the way, and he's hovering over it to give Ragnaros the sight lines.
Yeah,
where will it hit?
Oh, healing totem.
It does clear off that left side of the totem, though, so only one thing on it. And he wants spell power again, and he does get it. So he can play his Unbound, he can Lightning Bolt, and if Rag keeps hitting totems, maybe he's still in this game.
Well,
that's what
another
he's hoping.
blank or 2 drawn from the Druid, and he could finish out this game in a hurry.
D2 is still Force of Nature, 1 Force of Nature off from ending the game, though.
I was going to say, yeah, it's
absolutely
pretty volatile. And
Lotheb's okay, but even that is not really what he's looking for. If Rag doesn't hit something nice, you know, he really wants to hit either the Flame Tongue Totem or the Unbound Elemental.
Oh boy.
But that's only 2 good targets.
Right, hitting the face actually isn't even preferable. There's 8 damage right there. Although the nice thing about Lotheb is it does shut down a lot of the spell potential.
Well, Alakir, if it doesn't hit the Flame Tongue Totem or the Unbound, Alakir can end the game on the next turn.
Sure, that's true.
In fact, even if it does hit the Unbound Elemental, as long as it doesn't hit the Flame Tongue, Alakir can end the game. Which would be a crazy, crazy win from Deerjason right here.
Or if he hits one of the totems on the right side, whether Taunt, Searing, or Air Totem, he can also win.
Okay, there you go.
He can also win via Doomhammer.
He's got a chance. Let's see if he gets it. Feral Spirits.
That's more targets.
Yeah,
it's still something, and
it's making Ragnaros a little bit worse.
This game is going on way long, and I think because of the targets it sets up, I don't think Force of Nature Savage Roar becomes lethal.
Yeah, you may be right.
Or does he even just kill off the Lotheb so that way he can't trade into it? Because both swipes have been used.
That is
how is this game still going on, guys?
Very scary place to be in, where you're considering using 6 damage when your opponent is at 13 to kill an enemy minion.
Wow, it's so close. So lethal now on the board.
And he was thinking about killing the Lotheb with the Taunt Totem and the Searing Totem. He also could have done that.
Force of Nature.
Force of Nature.
Is it
Savage
enough,
Roar,
though?
is that enough?
That's what I'm wondering. 11 health to get through. If he Force of Nature Savage Roar, right, that's 14 damage in total, including the 2. So 3 minions with 4 damage.
Well, he can innervate and use his hero power.
That is true.
Well.
Okay, so that's 3, and that would take out one of the taunts as well.
Yeah,
one
but
more of the
still,
taunts.
it's all about how many creatures he can get through.
Yeah, 7 from Lotheb. And he would... Well,
7 plus 4. Yes, it's
I
exactly.
think so. It should be.
It is exactly.
He's got enough because
exact lethal damage.
He can use himself, his hero, to take out one of the 2/3s, then 2 of the Treants to take out the other taunts, and then he's got barely enough with the final Treant and Lotheb.
But he needs the hero power, right?
Yep.
Nope.
He's got to innervate hero power. He's not seeing it, is he?
No, it's too late now.
Nah,
it was exact damage, so.
Yeah, okay, well, D2's going to... He still can win through a Ragnaros roll.
That is true.
Yep.
That is true.
In fact, I think he should.
He'll have a very good chance at killing a good target.
But now
too.
he's left himself up to a position.
That's still 4. If he innervate hero powers now, he can still do it. Or if he just kills the totem there,
Yep, he's got it
here. He can still do it. Yeah, wow, that was close, man. I thought he was going to miss it.
Real's denying us, and now we go all the way here. D2, he counted up like 3 times just to be sure he didn't want to miss it again. He's going to win 3-0.
All right.
Had us all holding our breath for a brief second. What's going on?
For a moment there, I thought it had to be exact 3 damage onto one of the wolves to take it out.
No worries, man.
All the minions are all 4+ anyway, so it didn't matter which ones they were.
Yeah, but enough of that, man. D2, he's going to BlizzCon.
Amazing.
Yeah, that definitely well done, and he did a great job banning out the slow druid from Deerjason, did his intel, did his research, and the guy's going to go home 3-0 qualified for November's big tournament. Wow, what a story from this guy. He's a guy that lives in Japan for about 5-6 years, but he's a native to the USA. So he's a guy that's traveled a long way. Like, he's basically another version of Stunner in a sense, where he's traveled from a foreign country to compete. Really well done to him.
Yeah, and definitely got to give it up to Deerjason. You see him getting 3-0'd here in this match by that powerful ramp double combo druid. But he played really well. I really enjoyed watching him play some of these control, these slower decks. And it just didn't work out in this case, that powerful burst of the druid breaking through. Congratulations, though, to DKMRs.
It was really cool, though, seeing the deck list that Deerjason brought in, you know, and I wish I could have seen more of his matches, too, because definitely one of the most unique players in this tournament, and he almost made it. He almost got there. So a great run for him, but like you said, D2.
Yep.
Making it to BlizzCon. Very, very cool. So that means we only have one match remaining, guys.
The one thing I do want to say before we close out is that we want to take a look at the story so far. Firebat Strifecrow will be joined by D2. And D2 told me right before this match that Hearthstone is the only thing he's doing. He's kind of all in on this project in a sense. He took some time off from work. He wanted to really make this his thing. And he does stream pretty often and tries to show some of his gameplay. And it's just cool to see a guy who went for it, truly went for it without no guarantee of falling back. And the dream is alive for a guy like this in a foreign country trying to make his dreams come true.
Very cool. Wish him the best. We will definitely be seeing more of him at BlizzCon, of course, as a result. And the hard work pays off. And, you know, even for our other player, Deerjason, young guy, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of him, too.
Oh, yeah. I would be pretty shocked if that name doesn't come up again and again in the scene from here on out.
Yeah. He's 15 years old, and D2 was able to take out the series. A young prodigy here will be sent home by this guy from Japan. Rachel is sitting with our winner for a quick few thoughts. Let's hear what he has to say.
We could share the mic if you want.
There we go. You know how this microphone works. So D2, these games, you did a really good job, but you sat down in the chair and it looks like you're still doing some of the math in your head. Can you talk me through what you're thinking about here? Because you had a couple frustrations, a couple misplays, but ultimately you're the champion in the end.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the most embarrassing matches I've had. Unfortunately, I actually won. So, but definitely my teammates are laughing at me. I can hear Twitch chat just going nuts. And you're right this time, Twitch chat. That was pretty bad misplays. Fortunately, I was able to take out the Paladin game when I missed lethal, but I saw a comment earlier on one of the threads, and it's only missed lethal if you lose the game. It's otherwise just BM. So got it out. And the last game, you know, I was like, wow, he's actually, you know, so close to killing me. And I didn't really think that I could have lethal. It just didn't like factor into my head. So I was like, okay, I can, you know, clear this, and you know, I can just clear out the Flame Tongue Totem and, you know, be in a good shape. I'm like, oh, 7 + 4 is 11. So.
You know what? We're just going to share this microphone. So there's only 2 warriors and 2 paladins in this whole tournament, and you faced one of each when you played against Deerjason. What goes through your head when you see kind of a less common in the meta deck come out?
Well, to be frank, there's a reason why they're not as common. On the European side, they were running it a lot, and in the past, you know, week or so, we found out that there's a lot of, you know, aggressive decks that can just shut them down and just kill them really quickly. And I felt like a lot of my decks were good against that. And I think he made kind of a mistake in banning my Shaman, because I felt like that was my worst decks, particularly versus Control. I made it so that it could counter aggro, and it just flopped versus Control. And when I saw him ban that, I really liked my chances of winning today.
Well, you're talking about how you were focused on clearing the board. You're focused on one particular aspect of the game. When it's the other player's turn, what are you looking at? Are you watching from which side of the hand he makes his plays? Are you seeing how many cards he ends up mulliganing?
As far as the mulligan goes, I mean, it's kind of hard to, like, you can kind of see whether it's a good or bad hand, but, you know, he could draw into something, so it's really hard to know, especially, I mean, you don't know what he's thinking also. Maybe he's playing safe. Maybe he's just going for more like aggressive, or just being more risky and just mulliganing everything, for example. So I don't really look at that as much. But, you know, when I'm on my turn, you know, I'm thinking, I mean, this sounds crazy because, you know, I miss lethal basically. But I'm looking for, like, how close am I to lethal, particularly with that fast druid deck, because, you know, it's just so explosive. And you know, basically, what can I do? Like, what like allowances can I make for clearing the board and allowing for the damage to get through, and when should I really be going for face, and just basically thinking like how many cards he has, what are the odds that he can kind of stifle me, stuff like that.
I'm going to draw you up one of the little post-it notes I have on my computer that says, "Do you have lethal?" question mark. But I'm really excited to see you going on to BlizzCon. You are our only player representing Japan that has gotten this far. So I'm assuming Don't Kick My Robot's going to throw all their energy into practicing. What's that going to look like?
Well, it's going to be like just like how it was when I prepared for this. A lot of effort going to a lot of thinking about decks, a lot of thinking about the meta. I mean, this week was particularly crazy because there's so many things going on. We had the European qualifiers was so control, and then all of a sudden Hunter was this ridiculous deck that everyone had to ban this week. And it's just there's all these decks you have to count for. I have to be careful to be good against control. Like if I didn't make sure that my decks were good against control, I just like the dream stops here. So you have to balance your decks out. So that's important. And yeah, I mean DKMR we're going to be working on a lot.
Anything you want to say to the fans?
I mean,
You're going to BlizzCon, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited, and hopefully you guys, like my style of play, even though, like, I'll make more mistakes for you if that makes you happy. But no, just check me out on Twitch and Twitter. I do stream. It's IMD2, not D2, because that was taken, unfortunately. So go find me in there. Go find me on Twitter, and go follow DKMR. It's a great team.
Do it, guys. Thank you so much. And thank you, casters. I'm going to give it back to you guys.